Good morning, Froggy here. We are on the right rear suspension knuckle removal on this Corvette, and I'm going to do this one different. So this is a supplemental video to the left rear that I posted up a couple days ago. Got some more information, and what I'm going to try to do today, it's just the order that you take the upper ball joint, the lower ball joint, the axle, the tie rod end. What I'm going to do is number 1, upper, number 2, tie rod end, number 3, axle, and number 4, the lower ball joint, because it's hard to get to the lower ball joint nut. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, whoops, I want to show you that. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we're going to try. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's bring you up to speed here. We've got the top ball joint is loose. Tie rod end is off. This is a bump steer kit. Yours will come off at the top here. It's cone-shaped fit. The way I got these off is once the nut's off, you hammer on this, use a piece of wood to soften it up. Hammer on this, it'll come down. Get this nut loose here. Bang on it on your car, unless you have a bump steer kit. That'll come down. Move that tie rod end out of the way. We disconnected our wheel speed sensor and our parking brake cable, and we've got them up out of the way. Now we'll go for the axle. That is a 1 5/16. I think it's about a 33 or 34 millimeter, but I don't have that size. 1 5/16 will work. Take it off nice and slow so you don't gall the threads. Okay, only got 2 hands here, but one hand I would be pulling the knuckle, which the axle is still attached to. See, I'll be pulling that way with one hand. I put the nut back on, and I'm going to be tapping pretty easy tapping with that other hand, because the splines are all rusty in there, but we're just going to pull and tap, pull and tap, pull and tap. That's going to come out, I think. Here we go. I hope you can see this. I got a light on the splines of the stub axle. Once you get it started, you'll see the backside, and put a little PB blaster, penetrating oil in there to make it come off easy. You don't want to hammer too hard. Okay, right in there. See the rusty splines? Okay, I had the bottle jack underneath the upright to take off number 1 and number 2. Now I'm going to let the bottle jack down so that I can get some more space and get this axle. The splines are loose, but the threads are still in the hub. So I need a little more space, so I'm going to let the bottle jack down. Okay, the axle is out. You just gotta wiggle it around a bit. You have to push the axle into the diff area. Push the axle towards the center of the car and pull the knuckle towards the outside of the car. Just get enough space to get the axle out. Maybe give it a little left or a little right. Okay, now we have room to get at the lower ball joint. I used my impact wrench, put a little universal on the end because I didn't have a straight angle, and like that, just gunned off the nut. Now I just got to figure out how to break this loose, and my knuckle is off. Here's what I did to get the lower ball joint off. A little 2-arm puller. I put a couple of small washers on top of the stud to protect that Allen wrench opening there. I didn't want to mess that up in case I need to use it. But that's all. It didn't take very much. Just a little 2-arm puller. It's loose. Okay, knuckles off. So that's really the end of this video. I just wanted to show you, well, it's not the end. I'll show you how it goes back on too. But the replacement of the studs or wheel bearing, that's on my other video, so I'm not going to duplicate that. I'm going to finish this side, and then I will come back and shoot a little bit on how I put it back together. But it's really going to be really pretty simple. It's just the opposite. It's one, then the axle, then the tie rod end, and then the last thing is the upper ball joint. So lower ball joint, axle, tie rod end, upper ball joint. That's the way I'm going to try it. Okay? Okay, we're back. Here's our knuckle with new studs on. Same bearing. Bearing's good. I like to clean up all these tapered surfaces with a little Scotch-Brite. The inside, also the outside. Here. Once these cones fit together, they grip each other, and then you can torque them down. But getting them to grip each other, can be tricky. You can use an Allen wrench to hold this, because this wants to turn. You can hold it here while you tighten the nut down. But anyway, we're going to go with the order of the lower ball joint first, then the axle, then the tie rod end, then the upper. Okay, here we go. I'm going to use the air gun to gun that on. I got a little universal in there, so because they don't have a straight shot. And then I'm going to torque it to 60 pounds when I get her on there. Okay, check that. The torque spec is actually 52. And what I did was I temporarily put the tie rod end on there just to hold my knuckle so that I can turn on it. And I was able to get a torque wrench on very easy onto this lower ball joint and torque it to 52. So we're done there. Next, the axle goes in. I want to show you the angle I used to get that in. Wait a minute, let me get a flashlight. Okay, what I did is I grabbed the axle right there, shoved it in as far as I could shove, twisted it towards the back of the car, twisted the knuckle towards the back of the car, and the end of the axle, the threaded end of the axle, will just slip by where my light is shining. Right there, it'll slip by and start to go in to the splined area. So there you go, there's your angle. It was pretty easy, but you got to shove it in really hard and turn it really sharp. Okay, so then you just give a little turn on the wheel bearing to move the splines a little bit. The splines will mate up and your axle's in. I'm just going to turn this nut on. I'll spin it in with my gun kind of loose. I'll do the final torque on that when it's down on the ground. So that's one, and this is two. It's looking pretty good. I think, what did I say? Number 3 was the tie rod end, and number 4 was the top. You could probably do those two either way. I'm not sure it matters a great deal. Sometimes it's nice to have the tie rod end holding the knuckle from turning, but let me try tie rod end first, and then we'll see if this pops in easy. If it doesn't, then I'll do this first and then the tie rod last. Okay, well, I did the tie rod first, and then I kind of had to force this upper ball joint a little bit. I think it would have been easier going back together if I did the upper ball joint first and then the tie rod end last. But those are really, really not that hard compared to the lower ball joint. The lower ball joint is the one that was very difficult on the other side and super easy on this side. So this is the way you want to do it, in my opinion. And that's about it. I already showed you how to button everything up when I did the video on the left rear. So Froggy signing off. If this helps you out at all, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, subscribe to my channel. Be safe and have fun. See ya. Just one last bit of information. All we did, taking a knuckle off the way we did it, none of that requires a realignment. We didn't touch anything that required a realignment. Now, the closest thing we'd come to it would be the tie rod end, but if you take it off there, you don't touch the adjustment on it, there's no realignment required. Doesn't hurt to check it, but we didn't touch anything that would have changed the alignment. Okay? Froggy out.